Welcome to A Plan for That, where each week Vince and I unpack the crazy news cycle on this podcast and offer our 2 cents for putting the progressive people in power. I'm Erin, a recently activated lightning bolt of energy that demands progressive change in America. I believe, like my favorite Senator Elizabeth Warren, that it's time to make sure that all Americans have their shot at the American dream and not just the wealthy and super connected. And what do you think, Vince?
You know, this week has been a little bit ups, a little bit downs, and I cannot wait to unpack it with you again. Hi, everybody. I am Vince. I am the fringe of the establishment, quasi-experienced political activist who has had the opportunity to write a little bit of policy as well as influence public opinion. A recovering journalist. I'm here in the Rocky Mountain West, enthusiastically helping people who have energy to spare put it to work to get progressives in office.
It's been another week on the news cycle. One for the books. From Trump insulting our brave servicemen and women. We respect veterans. Thank you so much for your service. We here at Plan for That are absolutely disgusted at his comments. To the stupid decisions that are made by political campaigns. Yes, Wall Street donors, I'm calling you out. Help me make sense of everything, Vince, please.
I got so caught up in the great sinking of the Trump Navy over the weekend that I had almost completely forgotten that our commander-in-chief referred to veterans who were killed or captured in combat as idiots. 2020 really is one for the books. But just to show you how far we really have sunk in this year, our first piece that we have this week is my note is Bill Barr is AG ? And I'm not sure why I wrote the question mark. I don't know if I was thinking still. I don't know if it still just amazes me that he's made it there. But it harkens back to a simpler time, when a simpler man, Jefferson Beauregard Sessions III, was our Attorney General, and we were akin to a different kind of corruption, that quiet corruption of the Republican South. And this is the anti-corruption episode that is the theme throughout. And why not kick it off with one of the largest spotlights I've seen on just blatant government corruption in my lifetime, our current Attorney General, Bill Barr. Erin, how do you feel about Bill Barr?
I don't know that I can cleanly state it on the air, so let me try and clean it up in my head before I say it out loud. I think that there was a criminal referral, not an investigation, a criminal referral that Congress sent to his office. And I am so sorry that I don't even have to ask my magic 8-ball whether Bill Barr will do anything, because the answer, quite frankly, of course not. He's also a criminal, so we can't expect him to uphold the laws. Am I right?
Well, I mean, he can uphold the laws that are most convenient for him to uphold. Catch our listeners up, catch our audience up. Why is Bill Barr in the news right now, other than it is anti-corruption week on A Plan for That? We don't quite define the news cycle yet. Why do we care about Bill Barr right now in this moment?
Oh my goodness, there's so much. There's literally so much. He is trying to use Russian disinformation. It has been proven to be Russian disinformation, talking about the dangers of voting by mail. So listeners, please do not fall for Vladimir Putin's plan to screw with our election. There is no problem with vote by mail. If we're honest, like we discussed on our last episode, for those of you who are rejoining us, the only danger is that this president is going to get a chance to say that he actually won when the vote by mail votes haven't yet been counted. That is what we're facing. But Bill Barr going on national television and furthering a Russian disinformation campaign is not only dangerous for our democracy, it's dangerous for this upcoming election. And I don't know about you, Vince, but I am calling on Nancy Pelosi, who is, yes, the person that you need to harass to do something, about removing Bill Barr, investigating Bill Barr, at the very least, withdraw his funds the way that you've been promising. Okay?
There's something almost beautiful in Nancy's refusal to take action before the horde is at the gates demanding it, just because it harkens back to a simpler, quiet time of republic rule, when it really was just people in a far off auditorium making rules for a common class of peasant that they're never really going to see. So Nancy Pelosi, the peasants are here. We have our soup. It's for our families, but it can also be for you. Please take some action. We desperately, desperately need you to.
Absolutely, Vince. And I'm going to give a shout out to poor Elizabeth Warren, who all by herself is seeming to run the entire Senate. She has opened investigations into Louis DeJoy. She has called for him to resign. She has called for him to be referred on a criminal basis. She has called for an independent investigation at both the state and federal levels. She has also been calling out corruption in the COVID response. She's asked for IG investigations into that. And yes, Elizabeth, we love you, but come on, guys. She's a one-woman show here. Can we please get some backup?
It's almost as if Senator Elizabeth Warren was made to be in the Senate and made to be that progressive voice who's writing the pieces of legislation to put on the desk for a centrist executive branch to be comfortable signing. It's beautiful that Senator Warren is the one who's doing all of the work right now, especially when there's all of these contrasts being jutted up and manufactured and like cotton candy put onto a wand, spun seemingly from nothing, about the Biden camp refusing to work with the Warren camp, which is, of course, the gossip du jour. Well, not of the week, not of the day, but of the week. What's going on with Warren and with our Senator Elizabeth Warren and the Democrats' nominee, Vice President Biden right now?
So I'm not really sure how high this travels up the food chain, but there is something circulating all over social media, and I know that it got my attention, and it looks like it got pretty much every progressive person's attention on social media as well. And basically, just to sum it up, there was a big donor call, and we were told on that call privately that no, Elizabeth Warren policies aren't central to the Biden campaign. We just said those things to keep her supporters happy. So please, Wall Street, please, Big Pockets, don't worry. We have zero intention of bringing those changes.
What a silly thing to say. What a ridiculous, especially when did we learn nothing from Pete Buttigieg's entire candidacy? Don't have private fundraiser dinners and don't say stupid things at them if you insist on having them. Basket full of deplorables came out of a Hillary private fundraiser with Wall Street executives, and it almost caravaned her messaging campaign off of a cliff that month. And now, 60 days out, Biden is going to again caravan off a significant portion of the left by disenfranchising them for the sake of a millionaire class that Elizabeth Warren has proven at least we don't need.
Yeah, and I'm going to echo on to what we learned on the Warren campaign itself. We're not just the left, guys. The progressive people, and if our listeners are new to this idea, I really need you to get excited, because it isn't just the left. Yes, we have voters on the left, but we also have independent voters. In fact, we have independent voters by a huge margin when we were talking about the candidacy in the primary, and then even with the VP selection. And believe it or not, we even have Trump voters. We have people who voted for Trump because they believed in his ridiculous populist lies. And Elizabeth Warren isn't lying about popular policies. She is looking to bring those changes. So why would you go with the liar when you can get the real deal? Honestly, I'm super stoked to get Trump and his minions the hell out of office, pardon my French. But after that, I really want to bring the fire. The progressive voice is not going away. And Wall Street, I got news for you. There's more of us than you.
And that's why this issue doesn't necessarily need to be even an issue this week. I love being a Warren Democrat, and one of the things that I love about being a Warren Democrat is how pragmatic and how sensible everybody seems to be. Like it's why we all ended up in the camp that has a plan for that. It's because we want to be able to make sense of it all. And so when you look at the long range, non-drama, non-bot driven controversy here, it's that the executive office doesn't necessarily want to adopt 100% of the progressive policies of a former campaign opponent. But that campaign opponent still leads or holds a position of power in the Senate, and if we flip the Senate, could hold a much more influential position of power in the Senate, and could be driving the policy down that executive's throat that the people, the much more majority of the people, really, really, really believe in and want to see. And it's a good reminder to Americans as a whole that the power doesn't lie in the presidency. Through executive order and through inaction in Congress, the powers of the presidency have certainly swollen over the last several generations. But the power is in Congress, and the power is really in Senate. And with Senator Elizabeth Warren, we've proven that there can be a people-driven, sensible person who can really be putting laws forward that will fix everything for us. And so don't get caught up in the drama of the day on Twitter. Cast that ballot for Biden. We knew that he didn't love all of our policy positions. That's why he thought that he had to run against us. And that's fine, because we're going to be working with, but also kind of at him for the entire time that he is sitting at that desk in that office.
Absolutely right, Vince. And I feel like this is just a natural progression to the very important mention that, if you don't already know it, ElizabethWarren.com is not a campaign site anymore. It's something even more helpful right now. It is a list of all of the Warren endorsed candidates. And in a little bit, we're going to shout out the Julian Castro's People First candidates. It's a beautiful thing in the progressive wing of politics when we all work together. These two could have been the perfect ticket. God, let them be a future ticket. But nothing has stopped. Their cooperation continues, and I'm looking at them on social media and seeing echoes of who could be leading the housing fight and who could be leading the future fight for getting progressive policies on the desk. It really feels good to me, Vince. It feels like a symphony of power. So let's get with it.
Absolutely. And in this multi-year battle that we are all acknowledging that we are signing up for here, progressives in power is going to take a couple of turns of administration. It's also going to take knowing our history and learning a lot of lessons from what's going on right now around us. So coming up after a quick break, we have Justin Coleman, who's going to talk to us about corruption and big money in politics. And then, like Erin mentioned earlier, we're at the very end of the show. We're going to talk about our accountability, putting it into action, who we're endorsing right now, and of course, who Julian and Elizabeth are endorsing right now.
Every generation has a chance to be great, to rise above circumstances, push back against hate, to defy expectations. Now, what's happening in Washington right now, it is meant to divide us and to make us feel small. But now is not the time to play small. We are powerful. And now is the time to be bold. Bold with our ideas, bold in coalition, bold in our movement building. I believe in the power of us.
Welcome back to A Plan for That podcast with Erin and Vince. Today, our special guest is Justin Coleman. You know, Justin, to me, it all feels like it kind of boils down to the invasion of our politics and our policies by big money, and especially by foreign money. Justin, you've dedicated yourself to sleuthing out exactly how deeply the criminal ties bind us. You're a dedicated researcher. You have joined us in calling for anti-corruption, and it sounds like there's a heck of a lot to talk about there. Would you be able to explain what the dangers of allowing this corruption to continue, and specifically what you found with our favorite criminals du jour, Steve Bannon, Bill Barr, and anyone else you might want to talk about?
Okay. Well, thank you for having me, first of all. to to expand on your point about corruption, it's it's a thing that when it gets inside of a system or organization, it can bring it down and it can ultimately destroy it. And that's the thing that we have to keep out of our politics and our democracy as well, because you can have so many ulterior motives that they can cross up, and that's when you have conflict and you have a lot of the situations we have now.
Thank you so much for joining in with us today too, Justin, and this is a conversation that I've really been looking forward to having, and I like to always try to start by backing it up to 10,000 feet and then giving people the 5,000 foot view and then the 1,000 foot, and we'll slowly get closer into an actionable plan for people to be able to move forward with. And so we've named a couple of names who, I mean, we're on the heels of Trump's second Republican convention now, and it was mostly people who are in jail or have taken a brush with jail since the first convention, that we're on that list as we talk about corruption. But before we even get to that list of names, let's define corruption for everybody out there who's listening, because I had a scumbag landlord once who insisted that all corruption is palatable so long as it's in your favor. And I used to combat that and fight that, and he used to say that I was being utopic and dreaming, but I want to hear what is corruption to you, and what do we really need to be fighting out of our politics here?
Well, I feel that when you come into a certain position of power, it comes with a great responsibility, and when you sign up for that role, it should be done with integrity and honor and respect. And mainly it should be done for your constituents and the people that depend on you for that. So when corruption sneaks in, it's like the saying goes, it corrupts absolutely. And you'll have people that do things that ultimately will hurt the people that they were meant to protect. And that could be done from the local level to the state level to the federal level globally.
Sometimes it explodes in your face immediately, like with the Trump administration. But other times there are some, hey, this isn't really bad. Just do this one bill this way. We've got some money for you. We're talking about lobbying now, of course. And that, to me, is almost even more insidious because you can't see it coming, really. It makes you feel a little off your ethics. And even if you think you're doing it for the right reasons, I echo Justin here in, you signed up to do a job with ethics. Ethics are an important part of that job. And if you have shady ethics to begin with, maybe don't run for public office. Not a good spot for you.
Especially like the Trump administration, where we're seeing it blow up so quickly in their faces right now, where they're pursuing offices throughout the what the GOP has become to further themselves and to further their personal agendas. And Steve Bannon is the Batman villain du jour. And my favorite check-in with him recently was definitely, because it has I'm in Colorado. It has a Colorado piece to it. Was Steve Bannon helping to grift millions of dollars from MAGA supporters for the Mexico border wall by a GoFundMe site that was sending to a PO box here in Colorado, where none of that money, believe it or not, went to building a wall, and most of it went to Bannon's super yacht that he was eventually arrested on. But Justin, you have some better, juicier international updates, I understand, to check in on this wonderful supervillain on.
His current activities have been so widespread that you can easily get lost in just what he's doing, because it actually seems like a movie. When you look at the Populist Academy he was trying to put abroad in the Italian monastery, or his links to the fake news scandal in Brazil with Jair Bolsonaro, where they were creating fake personas and printing false news stories to influence local elections. And one of the bigger ones is his ties with the Big Three basketball organization, where they were going to funnel money from Qatar to Bannon's campaigns, if you call them, to basically help fund him to create the visions where he's been doing it so far.
That's just incredible. And the other thing I wanted to kind of pull into the picture here, because I don't know that people are aware of how organized the white supremacist attacks are and how mobilized these people have become. It feels to me, and I'm certainly not the research expert, that's why we've got you here, so that you could tell me where I'm going wrong, or maybe I'm on the track but took a sharp left. It really feels to me like he's been kind of a puppet master behind a lot of really violent and explosive things that we've been seeing all across the nation. And his white supremacist allegiance certainly hasn't missed our audience, and it hasn't missed us. But it is interesting that it's missed our mainstream media. What do you think, Justin?
Well, I can't hold them accountable for what they may not know or may not want to know. But as far as, that gives us this freedom to research and say the things that we find and see, and that's what this platform is, great for. And with Bannon, the funny thing is that he actually will influence more than one side of the spectrum, if you will. Like most people know about his ties to the populists or the far right or the white supremacist groups, but through Robert Mercer, they were also funding several PACs that, were targeted to influence Black people, like Black Americans for a Better Future PAC. And, they would use that money to basically print positive stories for Trump or negative stories for Trump, depending on the situation, just however they wanted to influence it. And, the main thing I think with Bannon was just to bring about as much division and chaos as possible. And that way, with so much coming at you, it's hard to process what you're really looking at.
He's good at it too. He's super good at it. And I think that's the tie. You had a magic word kind of slipped there into the middle of your paragraph there, PAC, which is where all of this corruption thing I think really comes together. And we have constant conversations now about big money in politics, dark money in politics, ethical money, public funded, all of these different words, and like you just finished your point saying, it's almost so much to confound and confuse us out of having the conversation in the first point. Because this is how people like Steve Bannon can take that international billions, millions of, influential amounts of money and funnel it directly into American politics to help elevate candidates that people around the world see as helpful to their particular causes, and giant PACs and super PACs are really largely how people are doing that these days. And people who listen to this show and people who follow me on Twitter at Vinny Chant, I'll always plug it when I can. They definitely know how I feel about PACs and how I feel about large money in politics. But since this is the anti-corruption episode, let's hear it from the table. What are we doing with PACs in politics, and do we want to get them out? What's the mood?
Well, I'd say as far as PACs go, they actually can be beneficial as long as they're monitored. But even in saying that, who's going to watch the person who's monitoring it? It's a slippery slope either way you go. And I understand that. You're going to have fundraising, you're going to have people want to donate to your campaign and help your cause. But, with those PACs, it almost turns into like I can buy more favor with this candidate. You see it so much with the people who are being nominated for these positions and roles. They are also the biggest donors, and that doesn't necessarily qualify them for that position.
I hear ya, Justin. Oh, I'm so worried about specifically laws that aren't being enforced right now. And to be fair, I don't even know if they were being enforced pre-Trump as much as they should have been. One of them that you've taught me about is FARA, the FARA law, which pretty much is relative to almost every single corruption scheme that's going on in the administration. I just wonder if you could explain to people who haven't been, insomniacs and wondering what the heck is going on a daily basis. Could you explain what FARA is and why it's so awful that no one seems to care anymore?
FARA is the Foreign Registration Act, and it's basically for those who want to influence our government on behalf of another government. And I haven't really been paying attention to it before maybe pre 2016, but since I've been aware of it, I've seen more arrests, and devs have been picking up because you have so many countries that are trying to evade sanctions, or they're trying to get some type of property deal or some type of trade options with us, and they would use whatever means necessary to get into that arena where they can negotiate.
Currently, it is members of the president's, in-laws and immediate family members who are doing global tours to visit them directly, making it very easy to circumvent this law. That but that's for another show, I suppose. And during the green room portion, the pre-production part of the show, Justin talked about what's going on with the Postmaster General right now, because we're trying to actualize the big picture corruption and the big picture stuff that we're talking about, and what is going on with Postmaster General DeJoy and his appointees, and how it is causing just a ripple effect from one small minor financial corruption point through a donor all the way into our government all of these years later.
With DeJoy, I think he was a wealthy businessman, and he already had his influence going before now, and that's why he was one of the bigger donors to Trump's campaign. And that ultimately won him a position, which was Postmaster General. And if you can tell from the recent news, like, this has been a big dispute over mail-in ballots, and it could also be disguised as some type of way to try to challenge the validity of the election. So having those people in place who you may already have some sort of sway over, or you feel like you've corrupted them yourself, it could ultimately bring them about to doing your bidding.
It almost seems like the more compromised you are, the more criminal behavior that you have in your past, the shadier your ethics are, hey, there's a place for you in the Trump administration. And I have a theory on this. I think that personally, if I wanted to manipulate and control someone and take control of any actions or words or things that they were going to be involved in, boy, I couldn't be more perfectly set up if it was someone who was really worried that they might have a problem with the law, or somebody that I could tell about their crimes. I flat out said one day on Twitter, I was like, the more criminal you are, the more schemes you've committed, it seems like you're the candidate. That's the one they're going to choose.
I agree with you. Having dirt on someone, or, some type of compromise, that's something that's been used for, decades. And, I would think it would be easier for him to use that, because sometimes it appears someone uses it against him. Whether you look at his bank loans, or, just some of his behavior back when he was strictly just doing properties in New York, some of the characters he was involved with to C-Men and, the people he was dealing with for the casinos. So, having that dirt on someone, it ultimately
the ultimate problem with political corruption is the ability to be compromised on an international scale and sell out your entire country to a foreign aggressor, like, say, Russia. Like, if I was just to pick a place out of nowhere for no particular reason. It's scary out there. Today is we're less than 60 days out from the election though, and we're building a plan for that, and we're not only looking at the bleak future and the bleak portrait of the current present that we're that is reality, but we're also trying to look for tangible ways and actionable steps out of it to build a better progressive future, because we're all about plans. What's the plan for that? What are we doing forward? What are we doing?
So my plan, guys, and this is something that is very clear on my Twitter feed, is to vote for candidates who are coming out right and saying, I only take grassroots donations. I only listen to people, not corporations. I don't take dark money. I don't have super bundlers or super PACs. And honestly, that's where I go. That I want someone who stands up and says, I have ethics, I have morals, I'm going to be beholden to you and only you. And I want progression to actually occur. Because another thing I want to bring up just before we move into the altruistic, awesome moment where we make everything better, because we definitely will. I want to not let it escape people that there is a corruption light, shall we call it? And that is what I attribute to Wall Street. So in other words, we're not committing treason. We're not selling out the country to the highest bidder, et cetera, et cetera. No, this time we're just blocking change, because the change that's good for the people is not always the change that's good for the pocketbook for the big, wealthy, connected corporations. Am I right?
I think a lot of the times we should actually, when a watchdog or a whistleblower comes out and tries to tell you something involving that, actually believe them instead of trying to, put that person on trial, and a lot of the times with this big money, we have to take it on as the people to actually vet these candidates and, to make sure that they're being truthful when they tell us they're not taking this or they're not taking that. And I think one of the things with Wall Street is we actually have a senator who is, was over the New York Stock Exchange. So, I mean, it's not getting better. It seems like it's almost, it's more bold and more blatant. And now it's like, we're just going to show you, we're just going to install one right into the Senate. So, I mean, it's we have a lot of work to do.
I mean, Justin, you just literally explained one of the things that we have been saying on every single episode of A Plan for That. You may not have who you want on the ticket, but boy, do you have some power down ballot. If you have any problems or questions about people being a little too beholden to the machine, and to be fair, there are some valid questions out there with regards to Wall Street and having Wall Street have a sway over our current nominee. But that being said, he's infinitely better than losing America and democracy itself. And there are plenty of people in the races at the state level, the legislature, et cetera, that are pushing progressive change. And as I said in the first episode, although I tripped over my words because it was my brand new show with Vince, the people who put the bills on the desk, those are the people who are writing the legislation. Those are the people we need to have being listened to their own constituents and not to Wall Street. And then when the bill gets on the president's desk, it's a progressive bill. It's a bill that talks about change. It's a bill that's for people and not corporations. Because do we like corporations in America? Of course. It's a fact of life. People have their businesses, and I'm actually happy that they've been so successful. But the problem, Vince, for me and Justin, I know that you and I have talked about this ad nauseum, when corporations are directing the direction of the country. I have a serious problem with that because corporations are not people. They do not understand the struggles that everyday American citizens face.
we have plans forward. It is going to take a lot of work. But in the vein of not just always having to swallow the pill and vote for the better of the two candidates, not the better of two evils, but the better of two candidates, because, one of them in this case is truly not evil and one of them truly is. It's also about supporting and finding the people who are organizing at a local or a more down ballot position, to really fight forward for that progressive cause that you believe in. And so, Justin, we always ask every guest, where should somebody who's listening right now send $5? What person, what cause, what place? Because while we're trying to get money out of politics, the dastardly truth is that money needs to be in politics right now to get it out. So what should we support this week? Where should we put our dollars?
I would be amiss not to mention our own local election here. So I would say to Doug Jones in our state Senate election, he's running against Tommy Tuberville. So just, any support you can give to Doug Jones would be great. And, he has a plan himself, and, he's actually been successful in trying to bring about change. And, the more you look into his story, the more you'll see what he's done. Like back when it was unpopular to be in his position, he maintained that. So, that's who I recommend for right now.
Especially in today's climate, and I won't go into details because it literally makes me cry, but the daily march of totally unacceptable behavior towards Black American citizens. Doug Jones is a champion for people of color. He is the attorney, in case anyone hasn't heard his amazing story. He is the attorney who fought for justice after the shooting at the church in Alabama. And I have already been a fan of him even before I knew that, because he was someone that came out and talked about how important it is to turn Alabama around and to give better schools. But hearing how much he's taken on the civil rights side of things and continuing that forward in our quest, it feels like a quest on a daily basis against the police and the policing in this country, that's going to get us off on a totally different episode. And yes, it's coming up. We have a guest coming to talk about the Black Lives Matter movement and policing in general, don't we, Vince?
Absolutely. Justin, this was so much fun catching up with you. Hearing all you have, well, not all, by no means do I want to say that is all, but scratching the surface of what you have to say about what we need to really be focusing on right now with corruption and big dollars in our politics. I can't wait to have you back after the election and down the line as we get closer, either to forcibly removing or cheering and waving as he leaves on his own in January, and see where we're at. Where do people check in with you? How do we stay in touch in the meantime?
Well, just on Twitter, it's at DMopJ, Justin Coleman.
Awesome. And we'll make sure to share it from our account as well for anybody who is listening and wants to be able to find out a little bit more. Everybody else, stick around after this. We'll have a little bit more and we'll say goodbye. Thanks.
As he lay dying, George Floyd cried for his mama and pleaded for his life. I can't breathe. As we witnessed his death together, the world changed. Across Alabama, folks are struggling with this, seeing injustice and inequality and wanting to see that end. We cannot let this moment pass. The road to racial justice has taken far too long, but it's a journey we must make, and we must make it together. Come join me. I'm Doug Jones, and I approve this message.
Welcome back to A Plan for That. That was just so much fun, Vince. I'm so glad that we had Justin Coleman on with us today to talk about the evils of corruption. I'm ready for the battle. I don't care how large it is. What is it Thich Nhat Hanh says? Peace is every step. So let's get stepping.
Let's absolutely. I love learning about these little tiny minutia details that it takes, because we absolutely need people to zero in on every little granular piece, and because it really is going to take a collaborative spider web of effort to make all of this happen, and learning about, learning about corruption helps. And I really look forward to learning about good big money in politics, or quasi good big money in politics in the future.
Absolutely. It's almost like you're inside my brain, Vince. We have some very special new friends and guests coming on our future episode, most likely in October, y'all. We're going to be talking to Op Frederick Douglass. This is a PAC for progressives. This is not evil big money. This is good big money. Big money that can bring big progressive change. I can't wait to talk with them. It's so good when power can be used for good, like a superhero.
So true. So true. And I love talking about money in politics. So that's a conversation that I am looking forward to having for sure. Now, another thing that I think has historically helped prop up incumbents or people with large name recognition or establishment candidates is polling. And so real quick, just in a minute or two, I wanted to really dive into to address some concerns I've seen bopping around on the internets about recent polling, because I felt nervous. It's my gut instinct to see a bad poll and just suddenly, throat, meet, heart. But Erin, what have you been seeing lately number-wise?
Yeah, I'm so glad you mentioned that, Vince. We're all only human, okay? So give yourself some grace to go at the latest polls, just like we all did. But then please come back with us. Please come back to the game, because honestly, it's about volunteering. It's about registering voters. It's about being a loudspeaker on social media for the candidates who are the progressive leaders that we're trying to elect in the first place, okay? Let's not ride the polar coaster. I love that phrase. I'm stealing it. Thank you, Warren Democrats. What I'm looking at this week is the power that Texas and Florida have. I understand, as the Electoral College is still the evil master that we all pay homage to, those are two of the most important states to win elections. So with that said, I am super excited about Pam Keith in Florida. She is running to be a House representative, and she is ready to put progressive policies to work for her people.
That is awesome. I love how you get focused in on down ballot or in small House district or in small out-of-state Senate races in such an inspirational way. I think I said the same thing last week. But I definitely want to double down on a point that you made about polling, and that we're all human, and that it feels good to have this thing to follow and this scoreboard to watch. But that's all that it really is polls are. It's like in a basketball game that's really tight and really close between two people who are really good. Yes, the score is going to radically get higher and it's going to radically feel tighter as time goes on, but really the work that those two teams put in the last couple of minutes is what's really going to be, up on that scoreboard at the end of the game. And so it is about using our energies in this home stretch, in this race to the finish line, in whatever way that we can, to get as many votes on the Democrat side of this ticket as possible, because whatever the polls say, whatever the polls said in 2016, it was 40,000 votes in 5 states that made all of the difference. And so we don't want to wake up on the day after Election Day wondering what could have been more. Here in Colorado, I'm haunted constantly by the fact that Omar Montgomery, former NAACP president and wonderful community member and leader here, lost the race for Aurora mayor by only a couple of hundred votes to evil former Colorado Congressman Mike Kaufman, and now the Aurora city is just absolutely falling apart under his leadership. And it was only a couple hundred votes that I still wonder, could I have knocked more doors for Omar? Yes, I could have. And could it have made a difference? I don't know. But I'm haunted knowing that I could have done more.
Well, first of all, I'm going to just say that I've known you for all of 3 weeks, and I can already tell that you put everything on the field. So be a little gentle with yourself, Vince. You've got other things on the fire, too. And in fact, a very wise man, could have been Vince, you never know, during the commercial break, told me that when you can't volunteer for 5 campaigns and watch yourself lose your mind like I currently am, hey, why not shout it out on Twitter and get 5 people to get 5 more people to get 5 5 more people. And with that being said, I now can tell you that Pam Keith in Florida is running for the 18th district, running against Brian Mast, who is only talking about politics as usual and business never changing. Pam is ready to bring progressive change and an upheaval to a system that isn't working, hasn't helped her constituents, and is ready to listen to the people and meet all of their needs. She is a super candidate. She follows me on Twitter. Thanks so much for the follow, Pam. I'm going to make sure that I can get as many volunteers for you as possible, and I know that Warren Democrats are already knocking down your door.
And you know what? This is a perfect transition and segue. We're already in it, into the accountability. What have we been doing personally? Because it's not just platitudes, it's action sometime. And what you're doing with Pam has been very cool to watch, and a conversation that Erin and I were having off mic was about how can we help candidates more who might not have the resources or the time to really to put together strategic volunteer efforts or registrations. And one of them, the answer is always, try to get 4 or 5 more friends involved, and if it can be, get them involved in fundraising. So Pam, and to any other candidates out there who might be following or listening along, we definitely want to make sure that our audience, who we definitely encourage to give $3 to $5 or whatever they can afford to progressive causes, get in touch with us and send us a video, send us an ad, send us you asking our audience for a donation with your Act Blue link or wherever it's going, and let's help keep the money in the grassroots, and let's keep money going where it needs to go, because this show is one way that Erin and I are very eager to be able to help give back in whatever way we can.
Absolutely, Vince. That was so beautifully stated. And I just want to, again, echo what I've said on Twitter about our brand new super PAC for progressives, Op Frederick Douglass. Not only does it have some pretty amazing people involved, and we're going to be talking with them sometime in the very near future, but it really is just a story of one progressive voice plus another progressive voice plus another progressive voice. The more voices that are out there, the louder our voice is. The louder our voice is, it translates in the polls. And that, my friend, is what I'm working toward every single week with Vince. That's the purpose of our whole show.
Absolutely. And we didn't get to it last week, and I want to make sure that this week we get to these names, because it's really the people who are pursuing office and putting their faces and their names out there for progressive causes that we have to send that love to. And so in our first week, it was Warren Democrats. This week, it's a new list. Erin, who are we asking our listeners to pay attention to this week?
So as far as the People First candidates, I want to give a shout out to Lucy McBath in Georgia. And Georgia's an important race, y'all. They've got 2 Senate seats up, but do not sleep on Miss Lucy McBath. Strike that. Do not sleep on Lucy McBath. She is running for Georgia's 6th district, and we already have a taste of what an amazing voice she has been. We don't want to lose her seat in this election, so please don't forget. It's always fun to flip seats, but let's hold on to the ones that we have too. We also have J.D. Schulten, who is running in Iowa's 4th district. We've got Marie Newman in my stomping ground, Illinois' 3rd district, as well as Lauren Underwood in Illinois' 14th district. These are important voices to keep around, okay? In Massachusetts, we've got Becky Grossman, who's running in the 4th district, Ayanna Pressley, the queen herself. I'm sorry, I'm a big Ayanna fan, running in Massachusetts' 7th district. And Teresa Ledger Fernandez running in New Mexico's 3rd district. We've got Mondaire Jones, a new personal favorite of mine, running in New York's 17th district. And he just won a historical race, so let's continue to propel him forward into his seat. We're also looking at Texas. Yes, the big state that everyone looks to for the Electoral College win. We're looking at Seema Lejaverdine. We're looking at Seema in Texas' 2nd district. We're looking at Mike Siegel in Texas's 10th district. And we're looking to, again, welcome Joaquin Castro back to Texas's 20th district. as well as Wendy Davis being sent to the 21st District, and Sri Preston Kulkarni to Texas's 22nd District, as well as Gina Ortiz-Jones to the 23rd District in Texas, Candace Valenzuela to 24th Texas District, Julie Oliver, who I'm personally volunteering for right now, to Texas's 25th District, Jessica Cisneros to the 28th Texas District, Donna Imam to the Texas 31st District, Colin Allred to the 32nd Texas District, Kasim Rashid, who I follow on Twitter, and he is an absolute pleasure, to Virginia's 1st District, George Gascon to the Los Angeles County District Attorney's Office. I attended an organization call with him, and he has some really exciting progressive justice change that he would like to bring to Los Angeles. And boy, could we use it. Jose Garza, who is also running as a county district attorney in Travis. And then finally, but definitely not least, we have Kim Fox looking to return to my stomping ground of Cook County, Illinois, as a state's attorney. Those are a lot of candidates, y'all, and I want to let you know that do not be surprised if you go on Elizabeth Warren's website for the Warren Democrats and you see the same names, because progressive people agree on the best candidates and they help raise the voice and the power so that the people can be heard.
Yeah. I think next week the endorsement list should just be candidates who interact with Erin on Twitter. Should be the criteria for who we're sending $3 to $5 for. But this week it is the People's First Future, helmed by Julian Castro. We all know the ticket should have been Warren Castro, so it makes sense to support Warren Castro Democrats. I don't really have a personal endorsement. Actually, I do have a personal endorsement this week. Jonathan Singer here is in Colorado is running for Boulder County Commissioner, and I just absolutely love Jonathan Singer and everything about him. So send him $3 or $5 or whatever you can, because he deserves it. My accountability this week that we kind of alluded to earlier in the show. I took Labor Day off. I'm a big union person. I believe in people powered and workers movement, and that Labor Day is 1 weekend a year that a lot of people really fought hard for our right to relax on. So I try my hardest to diligently unplug over Labor Day weekend every year. But this year, earlier last week in Rochester, New York, the police murder of Daniel Prude came to light after it had been. We talked about it earlier in the show with Justin, but it had been buried by the police force and by the mayor, and it happened before George Floyd was murdered in Minneapolis. And through the weekend, through everything else that I was trying to do to try to stay away, I found myself still pulled in to help organize, mostly for bail funds for activists who were being brutalized and put in cages by police officers for peaceful demonstrations in Rochester. And it's just a reminder that it's always happening. It's happening when it's not being filmed. Even when it's being filmed, we're not seeing it. Even when we don't get to see it, the corruption is apparent. And at this point, there's almost a willful ignorance that you have to acknowledge in your refusal to notice that something is structurally wrong in policing in America. And my weekend off, my accountability was actually going to be acknowledging that I'm not currently a union member, but I took a union holiday. But instead, it was spent organizing for people who could be on the ground for Daniel Prude in Rochester, and also thinking about our own corrupt and authoritarian mayor here in Denver, who despite a federal injunction, cannot wait for his police force to enforce his will. It's been a week, Erin.
Man, it sure sounds like it. And forgive me for my possibly non-astute question. Feel free to cut it if this doesn't cut it for you. Haha. uh, is there accountability for unions that are police unions? Because I've seen a lot of really disturbing connections, not just through the police department itself, but the union that should be used to help policemen organize for a good job with good pay and good ethics. But boy, sure doesn't feel that way.
That's a remarkably important question that I'm really happy that you asked, because I didn't understand it myself until a couple of years ago when I actually had to take the initiative to go research it myself, because I had never been presented with just here is this information. Police unions are atypical from labor unions in that their primary function and where their money goes is not fighting for equal pay leave or gender parities or safer working conditions. And in many cities where civil worker unions, like other city employees, aren't allowed to be representative by collective bargaining or through unions, they'll still have police and fire unions, because these unions are categorically different from labor unions. They are built from the structures of racist policing to uphold their ability to remain unaccountable. Qualified immunity is a byproduct of most police union bargaining, for example, and the ability for fired officers to repetition for new jobs in new jurisdictions or precincts despite being fired for flagrant abuses of power. It's a rabbit hole that in itself would definitely be its own episode, but I definitely would implore anybody listening out there to, Labor Day, it's a great time to reflect on the differences between a labor union and police unions right now, because it sure as heck seems like police unions only exist today to protect corruption. And what a wonderful note to end the anti-corruption episode on is we need to be able to hold the powerful accountable, and you have to recognize that the police force is a part of the powerful, and we need to be able to hold them accountable to the public.
Absolutely, Vince. We've seen it play out in the Trump administration, but it certainly trickles down from there. You've got to have a system of checks and balances that actually checks and actually balances. And if all we can do in this moment is to get that next progressive voice in power, I'm psyched and I'm ready to go.
Me too. I am fired up. We have a plan for that. We put some words into action this week. I really do like being able to unpack everything with you on this show, because it's convoluted, it's messy, it's chaos inside of my brain. But somehow or another, after 45 minutes on this microphone with you, I feel like maybe we can go handle it for the next 7 days. For anybody listening who wants to see what the chaos looks like for yourself, follow me on Twitter at VinnieChant, VinnieChant. And if you happen to be a fan of political demonstrations or skateboarding, I'm the same thing over on my Instagram as well.
That's awesome. I love it. And I may check that Instagram out. And for those of you who want the unedited version, let's just say that, feel free to check me out at Twitter as well at wellness for the number 4 you and then the number 13. I do not have my real name or my real picture. I am not a Russian bot. You're hearing my voice right now to prove it. But I have had some serious threats, and as a mother, as a wife, hell, as a human, I'm scared. So that's why you won't see a picture of this face. And it's the only reason. And when things are safe again, I will look forward to meeting you all.
Well, that's a future that is worth building towards, everybody. The secondary goal of a plan for that is to make America feel safe enough again for Erin to finally reveal her real identity to all of us here on this show. But until then, this was absolutely lovely. Get at us, the show itself, at Plan for That Pod on Twitter. Review us, subscribe, share. It is so important that you do all of those three things, because we want to be able to build and ripple, and we can't do that without your help. We're a people-powered movement.
Yeah, and Vince, I really liked an idea that you may or may not want me to mention on air, so feel free to cut this. You had an idea a while ago, and we have our best ideas off mic, y'all. His idea was that we should throw a shout out to the listeners, too. We're a little booked until the election, I believe, but if you have an episode that you're just burning to talk about, something that's lighting your fire on social media all over the place, or just something that's making you nuts in your mind, maybe give us a shout on Twitter, or on the Plan for That Pod at Twitter, which is at Plan for That.
Yeah, definitely get in touch with us. Tell us what you want to hear. Tell us what your questions are, where your questions are. We love interacting with all of you. Erin definitely needs the distraction from homeschool, and I need distractions from day jobs. So please help us out, get in our ears. We can't wait to hear from you.
Right you are. See you next week, all.